Growing Up Weird.
Hi, and welcome to Growing Up Weird, the podcast where we explore how the earliest chapters of Western childhoods shape the health stories that we then carry into our adulthoods. I'm Dr. Greg Dickens, scientist and consultant in medical innovation, and I am here with Dr. Gwen Bradbury.
Hello!
Who is a healthcare researcher, author, and your guide through the science stories and traditional strategies that connect childhood beginnings to lifelong good health. Each week, we dig into the newest evidence, understand how it links together, and walk through some of the changes that we in the West could make to give kids decades of better health. So, whether you're a parent, a teacher, a healthcare professional, or simply curious about how the body and brain develop over time, you're in the right place. Are you ready? Have you got a cup of tea? Good. We begin, as ever, with the news. Gwen, do you have any news?
Yeah, I have a really good bit of news here, Greg.
Okay, I also have a bit of news. Do you want to rock, paper, scissors for it?
Yeah, all right.
Rock, paper, scissors.
Paper.
Wait, I win.
You
Scissors.
win.
Yes.
Come on, all right, go for it.
Okay, up first. A paper published in Hypertension Research, which is an imprint of Nature, as everything seems to be, on 2 days ago on Friday, by Takeshi Fujiwara et al. Out of the Jichi Medical University in Japan. And this is a review. I don't often talk about reviews because very often they don't tell us anything we didn't already know. But this particular review I'm talking about for two reasons. One is that it pulls together a lot of evidence that links a thing in childhood with a risk in adulthood, which is what we're all about. And two, because just 2 days after this, just 2 days before this, because today is 2 days after this, 2 days before this on Wednesday last week, a paper by Jiali Zhao in The Lancet hit every national newspaper, which is that the rate of hypertension or high blood pressure in kids has more than doubled in the last 20 years. And worse than that, if you include pre-hypertension, which is a slightly lower bar, it has way more than doubled. Kids are much, much more likely to show pre-hypertension than hypertension. Their numbers are significantly different to the adult population, such that people think that those numbers should be hypertension in children. Okay, why is this important? Let me read you the first 3 lines. And again, I don't often do this, so it's important. Hypertension in children and adolescents is a growing public health concern. It poses immediate risks to health and frequently persists into adulthood, where it accelerates target organ damage and adverse cardiovascular and renal outcomes. Which is doctor for, this will knacker your kidneys and your heart and your blood vessels, and if you start early, it's not going to stop. What I find really interesting about this is it's big public news now. Every major newspaper, like it was in The Guardian, it was in The Times, it was in both sides were having a good agree on this one. But what I find really interesting about it is the difference. The Japanese crew, led by Fujiwara, I think, missed the point. They went into, this is terrible for kids, it's terrible for the adults those kids are going to become, and it's all because they are so fat.
Okay.
And Dr. Zhao, publishing in The Lancet, said this is terrible for kids, it's terrible for the adults they're going to become, and it's all because of something that is leading to obesity and high blood pressure and a bunch of other things.
Yeah.
What is that underlying thing? And they point the finger squarely at metabolic syndrome driven by probably sugar, but they suggest it could be sugar, could be salt, could be a bunch of other things. I find it interesting that divide of, is this people get fat and it kills them, or is it something happens and putting on weight is a symptom of it, and therefore you want to look before that, and you don't want to say, well, everybody who's fat is useless and terrible and it's going to kill them. You want to say, right, there is something happening here that is driving some people down this route. What is it? We need to find it. We need to deal with it. it, I think, was quite lucky that the paper that came out first, the one that came out through the Lancet and hit all the major newspapers, carried with it that this is a murder mystery story. We need to find the underlying killer here, not the paper that came out slightly later that said, we know the killer. Being fat's terrible. It's because you're all useless people and therefore are in trouble forever, which is the rhetoric from the 70s.
Exactly. Just feel like, what decade are we in, folks?
Yeah, this is 50-year-old logic and needs to be washed away.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's why I wanted to raise this interesting paper, because it very clearly pulls together data from 400,000 patients in the Lancet one and over that in the Japanese one, shows the scale of the problem, talks about what can happen, and like their major issue here is not the cardiovascular symptoms, it's not the heart disease, it's the fact that it will knacker these kids' kidneys earlier. And that doesn't sound like the end of the world. Nobody even knows what a kidney does. Apart from, if you have knackered kidneys, you're just going to feel terrible your entire life. The decreased washing of the blood, the decreased removal of metabolic toxin and other toxins and other byproducts just makes you feel like crap your entire life, and you are much more likely to have disorders of bone calcium and phosphorus, much more likely to have fractures, much more likely to then have further blood pressure and cardiovascular diseases, much more likely to have stroke, much more likely to have long ongoing inflammation. And it just leads to you having, like, sure, you're not going to die of a kidney rupture, but you're going to feel terrible for the last 30 years of your life. And that's no fun at all. Okay, there we go. Interesting news. 2 papers contrasted. What have you got, Guinevere?
Okay, Greg, I have 2 papers this week.
Tell me.
One which is pretty hard hitting, and one which is kind of slightly frivolous. It's more of a like, this is really interesting.
Dude, if you told me you had 2 papers, you would have immediately won the rock, paper, scissors. Kept that ace in the hole.
Well, the first of these papers is from Shaker et al., published in the BMJ. And I have a little bit of interest in this because a friend of mine was one of the authors. So she actually
cool.
she spoke to me recently to say, look, this is coming out. And what the paper is, another paper answering the question, does paracetamol use or acetaminophen use during pregnancy affect autism risk in children?
Trump's favourite thing.
It is Trump's favourite thing. And it has been responsible for enormously changing attitudes to pain relief during pregnancy. And we'll talk about the implications of that in a minute.
Sure.
But what this paper found, it was a review of reviews. So where you're looking at all the published research and you're saying, what does that tell us? And so that looked at 7 different reviews. And they were looking not only at what did the reviews say, but what was the quality of the underlying research. And they found that almost all of the reviews were reporting on pretty similar research. So unsurprisingly, the primary research in those reviews overlapped enormously.
Okay, yeah.
Almost all of the reviews said, I think all the reviews said that there was almost all of the reviews said there was an association, apart from ones that controlled for sibling factors.
Okay, are you going to go into what sibling factors are?
Yeah, so sibling factors are, do you have a sibling with autism or ADHD?
Right.
Because that we know that if you have a sibling, you are at a much higher risk of having autism and ADHD.
Okay.
And so it's a very critical thing to control for in these studies. Otherwise, when you're looking at them in isolation, you don't understand that people have certain risk factors.
Sure.
You kind of miss out on that. And so what it found was that certainly the reviews, when they looked at the whole cohorts, were saying, yes, there is an association, though almost all of them said the quality of the research is really low, even critically low, so you need to have more studies.
What does critically low mean?
It means that there is not enough evidence to make a confident answer.
Okay.
But even so, as we know, media reporting often does not give nuance.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
So they said, yes, there is an association, but actually, when you look at the studies that do control for sibling factors, that association disappears.
Gone.
So what this paper says is that if you rigorously control for the sibling factors, if you actually look at the people in the study and you say, how long were they taking this drug for, what was the indication for that drug? Because you can imagine that perhaps certain illnesses may predispose you, which might be the same ones that you take the drug for. The review found that the risk basically goes away. So what they say is that the fact that we know so much about sibling controlled factors, then it suggests that the shared family factors such as parental mental health, genetic predisposition and socio-environmental background explain much of the risk that is observed and attributed to paracetamol. So this paper concluded, existing evidence does not clearly link maternal paracetamol use during pregnancy with autism or ADHD in offspring. But what I think is really important to say is that it doesn't say paracetamol does not cause autism, because we would need a lot of evidence to be absolutely sure of that.
Proving a negative being nigh on impossible.
Is really hard. So what we have to then do is we have to think, we think it is unlikely that paracetamol, it seems unlikely that paracetamol is a major driver of autism and ADHD risk, but we do have to think about whenever we take any drug or whenever we give children any drug, we always need to weigh up the risks and benefits. So if you're in pregnancy and you are in a lot of pain, that pain causes stress, that stress can affect offspring. We're weighing this up. So you can't say, oh gosh, well, women should definitely not take paracetamol in pregnancy because of some small possible link.
You can if you're a man.
You can if you're a man. Because
you can say that quite
absolutely,
happily.
Men can say that very, very easily across the entire world. But I think what we can take from this study and what we can take generally is that we don't know for sure. Virtually everything we do in childhood and infancy has consequences, so we have to make decisions based on risk. But there will be situations in which it is clearly much better to take an action or clearly much better to not take an action. And we have to work out what the risk level is right for us. Anything you would add to that?
Only that applies even when you're not expecting it. So
tell me more.
Well, things like if you take it to an extreme, shoes, right? You can add more padding and it protects you from the ground and helps you not break your foot bone if you fall off the side of a step or something. And that always seems like a good thing. People always add safety because safety is always a good thing. But this idea that everything has a downside, everything has an upside, you've got to consider both. Even if you don't think you can see both, find it and consider both. Shoe padding is an easy one because it reduces the stress going through your bones and makes them not grow as strong or as well shaped. And we've talked about that one just one podcast ago. But there's always an upside and always a downside to everything. You got to think about it. That's your job as a parent / pediatrician / teacher, whatever you are. That's what I'd add. Great.
Thank you very much. So that was extremely topical, big news one.
Yeah, very topical.
But my other one is really for those parents who are approaching or in the midst of potty training. Because there was a study that came out couple of weeks ago.
Not themselves.
Oh, yeah, sorry, for kids, not themselves. Although, no judgment.
There are two sides to everything, as we just said.
Absolutely, two sides to everything, exactly. God, they've got some images here. Right. But this was a study that it was published in the European Journal of Paediatrics. And the question was, do disposable diapers reduce urination elimination signals in non-toilet trained children? I did not just pick it because of the first author, but the first author's name is Blatt.
Oh my God, Gwen.
I'm sorry. But anyway, 23 children. And what they did was these children were not toilet trained. So they basically looked at the children walking around with a diaper on and measured when they urinated and looked for signals around urination. And then took the diaper off and let the children walk around and looked for signals around urination when they didn't have a diaper on.
Okay, I have questions immediately.
Okay, tell me the questions.
You said these are non-potty trained individuals?
Yeah.
Okay, but we know that culture makes a massive difference at this point. Are these kids who have already been diaper broken?
Oh, so they're age 2.
So yeah, they will have already been trained out of giving signals.
Exactly, yeah, absolutely. So it's
Okay.
already harder to see the signals because they've been in diapers for 2 years.
But
even for these children who have spent 2 years in diapers, there were very significant differences between how they signalled or the signals they showed when they were about to urinate. and when they were urinating. So about 43% of children who were not in diapers said that they needed to wee before they weed, which is it's quite good going, 40%, compared to 13% in disposable diapers.
Okay.
Big difference.
Yeah.
About the same number sought out their caregivers when they needed before they urinated.
Right.
About the same, 50% versus 13%. Many children moved their limbs. I don't actually know what that looks like. Is it like a paddle? Is it a dance? I'm not sure. Maybe it is a dance. We've all seen kids dancing when they need a wee, right? But 87% of kids showed lower limb movement versus 35% of children. Most children, I find this really interesting, stopped what they were doing if they were not in diapers. So about 90% stopped what they were doing to urinate, compared to about 35% in diapers. Isn't that fascinating?
How can you not stop what you're doing?
I have no idea.
Weeing is my whole brain. I can't do anything else when I'm weeing.
I'm thinking these multitasking toddlers.
Incredible.
They can just walk around peeing, playing. It is.
I
honestly
almost want to try that now.
pretty impressive.
I don't think I could do that.
So basically they said, these kids showed significantly more signs before and during urination when they were out of disposable diapers, which kind of makes sense, right?
Sure,
but it's not. Yeah, I was just amazed at the size of the difference in the same kids.
That is a big difference.
There you go.
And as we said, these are kids who have already been trained out of giving signals.
Exactly. Yeah.
Imagine what the difference would be if they had not.
Yeah. So
cool.
Thanks very much to Blatt et al.
I really hope their first name begins with an S.
It doesn't, unfortunately.
Okay. Nominative determinism aside, I really want to talk to you about your third big win article, because I loved it. I love the houseplant metaphor. We're going to dig into that a little bit.
Yeah.
I want to ask you a little bit about this magical 2-hour time frame, and let's go from there. For those of you who haven't yet read it, A, what are you doing? B, it's about sunshine, as I assume an outdoor marker, a marker for being outdoors.
Yeah.
And the general thrust of this article is there are so many things we need to do to enable kids to get all the inputs they need to grow up strong and healthy. And if you can spend time outdoors, a lot of those things happen to them accidentally, all at the same time. So it's an enormously efficient, both time and energy efficient way to achieve these things. Is that approximately right, Gwen?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, when we look back on when we were travelling in South America and Africa, one of the reasons we went there was to see how children grow up in places that don't think too hard about it. I think that really is critical, because we were looking at things that the environment and the culture provide unconsciously. So the parents aren't doing deliberately. Because, in today's Western world, I feel like we parents are given so much advice about all of these things that we should be doing to get our kids, developmentally ready for, the next stage of their life, and then up to, what they should be doing as a career. It's exhausting.
If you're not spending 90% of your waking energy tuning your child to be a violin-playing algebra genius at Cambridge, then you're a terrible parent.
Yeah, it's absolutely nuts. And so what I was kind of focusing on this article is, if you want to just not have to think quite as hard about getting kids developing all of the parts of their body they need to develop.
Yep.
What is the thing you can do where those inputs, so to speak, are provided without you having to think about them?
Love it. Which brings us to my first question, which is, how is a child like a houseplant?
I actually thought of this metaphor because I was actually brushing the dust off my houseplants and then moving them outside so they could get rained on and the right amount of sunshine, moving them back in again. I thought, this is wildly inefficient. I'm keeping this plant in this really abnormal environment and I have to do so much so it's healthy.
Yep.
I look outside and I'm like, well, those plants, I'm not putting in any effort at all and they look great.
Yes, fair.
So the point is that just like a houseplant, if we keep children inside for most of the time, we have to try to meet all of their different needs in different ways, which is so inefficient.
Okay. Now those needs, for those who've read the article, you would have seen quite a long list of various needs being being met either by hardworking parents or by the lovely outdoors. I don't want you to read the entire article here, but can we have some examples?
Yeah, examples range from the right amount of light for eyes to grow, the right amount of noise that's not just trying to attract your attention, that lets your hearing calibrate normally, around movement that helps your bones to grow strong, your muscles to be at the right length, and enables you to form a love for movement that takes you on throughout your life. It includes the ability to play in different ways without adults having to tell you, because you have a wildly stimulating environment.
So, to be clear, these are all things that with significant effort, space and money, you could achieve indoors, yes?
Yeah, absolutely.
But you'd have to do them deliberately, one at a time, and with very expensive, fancy lights and play gyms and a tutor and all of those things.
And then you find that there are only 24 hours of a day, which, if you're lucky, your child's asleep for hopefully 12 of them, maybe slightly less, maybe slightly more, depending on how lucky you are. And then you're like, hang on a moment, where is this supposed to fit into my life? Assuming that you want to do anything other than providing the inputs for your child's physical development.
Nice. Okay, so those examples, if I can remember them from 6 seconds ago, were emmetropization, the autofocus growth of the eye to be the right length, triggered by right amount of light, right distance of looking for the right amount of time per day. They were tuning of the hearing, so that you learn to distinguish loud from not very loud, when to trigger your hearing-saving reflexes, how to determine speech, and all of that. Growth of bone strength and shape, followed by growth of muscle length to enable flexibility and agile movement in an injury-free sort of way. And there was one other.
I was talking about unsupervised play and time to play in an unstructured way.
Would I be right in thinking that you have written on all of those?
I think probably yes. I could keep going. I mean, you cut me off. I was just going to...
Let's have 5 more then, off the top of your head.
Okay, 5 more. All right.
Yep.
Risky play, ability to take risks. You can join in as well.
Gladly. Microbes for the microbiome and the immune system.
How did I forget that? Yeah, absolutely. Sunlight for not just for vitamin D, but also for inflammation modulation.
Yeah, very good.
That sounds great.
Okay, 2 more.
Smell.
Impacts
on cartilage
and reflexes.
Yeah, absolutely.
Last one.
And I think dietary diversity, foraging.
Yeah, okay. I like that. Very good. 10
don't
just off the
give
top
me,
of your head.
Don't ask for another 5. I'm not sure I can do it.
You can do it, but it would take some barrel scraping. Okay, right. So getting outside clearly allows us to get a whole bunch of stimuli. There we go.
Yeah.
Not stimulants. Not unless you go down a back alley.
Yeah. Depends on your foraging.
Indeed. All at the same time is great. And that fits a whole bunch of body workout all into a short period of time. You've picked 2 hours in your article. What's magical about 2 hours? Is there anything magical about 2 hours?
Great question. The only reason I picked 2 hours is that we know that is a level for eye. Well, that is a threshold that has been proposed for eye development, which is a very, very arbitrary number because it has been plucked out of the air by some people who needed to do a study and needed to have a cut-off point. So basically, what I want to say is more is better.
Sure.
But if I put a line in the sand, I felt 2 hours was achievable, something to aim for, especially in the winter. It's so dark at the moment.
You can't have an aim without an aim.
Exactly,
right?
Yeah, absolutely.
You need a number to aim for. I think that's a very sensible number. I wasn't trying to knock it.
No, it's a really great question. I'm not saying have your kid outside for 2 hours and then look at your watch and be like, sorry, bud.
That's enough. Back inside.
Playtime's over.
Okay, well then this brings us to the final question, which is...
Actually, no, before you do the final question, I have to tell you this. Average American child, I read the other day, 25 minutes of recess a day. That's playtime for UK listeners.
It's also recess for most people.
I'm sorry, I always pronounce things wrong.
She reads big books and gets mizzled by the pronunciation she reads.
I feel so melancholy. But anyway, so the message is you can't rely on school to provide that outside time.
Yeah, and even if you did, it would be in a safety controlled environment with adults watching and with either grass or tarmac and no poking around in the weeds or falling off stuff.
Yeah.
Okay. How do you fit in these 2 hours then into a school day?
Great question. We tend to walk to school, or at least we get to school in an active way. It doesn't all have to be walking. Walking is really, really, really good. But cycling, scooting, anything where you're outside, at least you're feeling wind on your face and your microbes and eyes, etc.
Yep.
Park after school.
Yep.
Garden in the summer, which is easier. Eating outside.
That's a
big
one.
thing we do. Yeah, absolutely. So in the summer, every time we eat is outside, because here's a handy tip. When you eat outside, you do not have to sweep up. You do not have to wipe the table. Everything is easier. Another way of stacking life.
And to be clear here, to our very posh listeners who with their mansions, sure, you can eat in your fancy mansion gardens with your butler bringing things. For the rest of us, we're eating out the front of our house on a patch of grass next to a path.
Yeah, doesn't belong to us.
Not even our property.
It's not even our property.
We're just sitting on the grass.
And we sit and we wave to our neighbours. And yeah, it's great. So yeah, I think eating outside is a really big one. But as soon as you go, I mean, the barrier to getting kids outside is getting them outside in the first place. It's not staying out. Once you get out, it's much easier. You just have to find the ways of navigating it, of setting up situations that they have to be outside.
So may I add something to that?
Yeah, please.
At the weekend, it's very easy to spend an entire day indoors. If you are built around walking to school and then you walk to your extracurriculars, if you've got any, and you walk home, fine, you get loads of outdoor time, fantastic. But the weekend, you get up, breakfast has happened, and then you watch Formula One. Or you can send the children to get things.
Yeah, that's so
You can send them into the garden to get things. You can send them to the shop to get things. You can tell them to go and ask a neighbour about an important piece of information that you just pluck from the top of your head.
Yeah, absolutely. WhatsApp, as far as they're concerned, doesn't exist.
Oh, could you please take this to Phil?
Yeah.
It's a piece of paper with nothing written on it.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
My favourite thing is if you get, if you go to if you have strawberries or you pick some kind of fruit from either your own place or from somewhere else, why don't you just send the kids out with a basket, like some fruit, go and knock on friendly neighbours' doors and see if their kids want any fruit.
Reverse trick-or-treating. It's amazing.
Reverse trick-or-treating
It
is
is.
so good.
They turn up looking a bit ghoulish.
Yeah.
And hand out treats. It's incredible.
Perfect. Yeah, it's all about creating those tiny little opportunities.
Yeah, and you can sum up like 10 minutes here, quarter hour there.
Yeah.
Your 2 hours doesn't have to be a block. It doesn't have to be 120 minutes counted out. It's like you hit 2 hours by putting small pieces together.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, that was fun. I think quite well laid out.
Yeah.
Good job, Guinevere.
Thank you.
Do we have a listener question?
We
Actually, wait, I've got a note. My piece of paper actually has got something written on it.
Okay.
Can I add a point to this?
Yeah, absolutely.
I was thinking, while reading your article, that if I was going to spend 2 hours a day outdoors in a car, I would think quite seriously about spending significantly more money on my car to get a safer, better car. But, to make the experience not so awful.
Mm-hmm.
And yet I'm a skinflint and quite stingy. And I'm saying, do I really want to spend 30 quid on proper waterproof gloves for the kids?
Yeah.
They're only going to grow out of them. And 30 quid's 30 quid. But if you compare that to them having a nice, enjoyable time that helps them spend a lot of time outdoors in a British winter, and you compare that to what I would reasonably spend on a car if I was going to spend 2 hours outdoor in a car every day, it's nothing. I should stop being such a stingy git, and I should buy them some proper gloves. And they like their fluffy gloves, but I'm going to get them fancy, waterproof, high-tech jobs because I do want them to spend 2 hours a day outdoors. And there's no such thing as bad weather. There's only stingy fathers and bad gloves. There we go. That was the point I wanted to add.
Thank you. That was great.
Got a listener question?
I do have a listener question.
Let's have it.
So, I wondered whether you'd be able to cover a topic for me if you haven't already, and that's salt in children's diets.
Ooh, okay.
How much is the low, no salt recommendation an overcautious generic response to weird child rearing, which assumes a large proportion of ultra-processed foods in the average diet, low breastfeeding rates, etc.?
That's
a good question,
that's a good one. I like that.
I know, when I got this one, I was like, brilliant. I cannot wait to cover this one.
That's a whole article in there.
It is. I know. At some point, my friends, it may well be a whole article. But at the moment, I'm going to give you a whistle-stop tour. Current recommendation in the UK is that toddlers have no more than 2 grams of salt per day. And that recommendation came in the early 2000s.
Okay.
And so this, in order to eat less than 2 grams of salt a day, most children eat more than that. So there is strong guideline that you should restrict the amount of salt in a child's diet.
Okay.
The reason for this is because if in children, in young babies, so babies, the major studies are actually done on babies under the age of 6 months. So they're looking at salt from formula and cow's milk at the age under the age
Babies of less than 6 months, where their entire fluid balance is controlled by the milk that they're drinking.
Yes, absolutely. And the amount of sodium for those babies seems to program some cardiovascular health outcomes. What that means is that higher levels of salt in a very young baby's diet is associated with a higher risk of hypertension and altered kidney function later in life.
Linking us back to the papers at the beginning of the thing.
Exactly. So when you started talking about it, I was like, brilliant, you're setting me up so well. So there is evidence that a high amount of salt in early life can alter hypertension, presumably through, as we've talked before, metabolic syndrome, the salt intake altering fructose production in the cells, which drives a lot of metabolic health indicators. It may either be through there, or I suspect it also could be through direct kidney damage and inflammation.
Yeah, either of those makes sense.
I can see various routes to that. One would expect, and this is we know that the studies that I've looked at, especially are in very early babies, but actually when kids start to eat sugar, we know that sugar really potentiates the effects of salt. So salt, for example, salt reduction strategies work if you have a population where there's a lot of diabetes and prediabetes.
Sure, salt reduction strategies for reducing hypertension in adults,
yes,
to be clear.
Exactly, because salt and sugar are closely linked.
Yep, I gotcha.
Also, if you have a child on a very high salt diet when they're children, they have higher salt preferences later in life. So there's a kind of programming of taste preferences as well.
Yep, fine.
So there's a whole bunch of stuff that, it's clear that putting too much salt into babies is a bad thing.
Yep.
We're all agreed on that.
Yep.
But the next question was about whether or not, what does high salt look like?
Okay.
And then the sort of key aspects are, where is the salt coming from, and is the salt in all the foods or in a subsection of the foods? Because we're looking at a daily total, not an absolute quantity for each individual foodstuff.
This is just, can babies eat olives? Right? This is the thing.
Exactly. It is, can babies eat olives? And if everything else has got very low salt, olives are absolutely fine. And if it's just one olive, also fine.
Say that again and say that louder.
So, if everything else is very low salt, no problem with feeding babies olives. Just not too many. Sure. One or two. I remember when the children bought a jar of olives with their pocket money. And
you start giving kids pocket money and they come back with a kilo of olives.
Yeah, and you're like, no, I'm pretty sure that's well past your toxic salt dose. You can have a small number today.
Yeah. Eat all of those and you die.
So, salt. High salt levels are bad, but we have to think about the whole diet and the quantities of salt in different aspects of the diet. Mm-hmm. So there was a paper in 2011 that looked at 1,200 UK babies, and they found that 70% of the babies studied had a higher salt intake than 2 grams per day. And Greg, what do you think was the biggest contributor?
Pork scratchings.
Well, I was going to surprise you, but that would be very surprising. It's actually cow's milk. Would you realise that cow's milk? So apparently breast milk has about 15 milligrams of sodium per 100 grams, and cow's milk has about 55.
What?
Yeah, which is absolutely mad. And it does make me think about, what is it about calves? I mean, calves are, to be fair, we're both veterinary surgeons, so we're just going to have a slight dairy
quick chat about calves.
But calves are much more precocious than precocial. So they are able. So what we mean by that is that a calf is able to get up, walk around. It has to keep up with the herd very quickly. Yeah. Can they sweat?
I bet they can sweat the second they're born.
I bet they can. I mean, that would be a big difference.
There's a good serious reason to have sodium. High sodium. And they've got rumen.
They've got a rumen. Yeah,
although, is it going to be generating heat at that stage?
Not very much, because you've got your esophageal groove.
Yeah, good point.
Sorry, we can. Anyway, so I wonder whether it is that, because you probably, regardless, sweating, you probably have more mature kidneys. There are a bunch of reasons why calves can probably deal with higher sodium levels.
But our little pink naked squallers can't get rid of salt.
Yeah. And so this is why it's, you're not supposed to give cow's milk as a drink to babies under 12 months because the sodium content is so high.
Fascinating.
And so a lot of these babies were drinking large amounts of cow's milk per day.
Okay.
And that was a big contributor. Other big contributors were ultra-processed foods like bread. So
salt in bread?
Yeah. So, I mean, again, this is ultra-processed bread. I'm pretty sure these 1,200 babies weren't having only home-baked or only sourdough, although sourdough is pretty salty as well. But so the babies with the highest salt intake were typically eating 3 times more bread than the babies lower down. So, so bread also pretty high. Also gravy, canned spaghetti and baked beans were called out as particularly salty, ultra-processed foods. Didn't say, I mean, for my middle-class listeners, it didn't list hummus and olives as major contributors to the salt intake.
Sun-dried tomatoes, knocking them down.
But in all seriousness, what should we do? I think there are a few points. One is that we talk about this all the time, but breastfeed as long as you can, and then move on to water. Don't move on to cow's milk as a replacement for breastfeeding. You want to make sure that in any baby's diet they have plenty of plants, vegetables, fruits, etc. that are not salted, because that just is going to dilute out with high water content salt that is in anything else. And then if you are doing those things, it's fine to feed babies food that you also eat.
Sure.
It would be absolutely daft, for example, to say, well, I'm worried about having the salt that I put in my homemade pasta sauce, and so I'm going to buy my child ultra processed
salt-free baby food.
Yeah, exactly. So if you're doing those things, it is fine to feed your babies what you are eating. If you are a really heavy salter, is that a thing? Heavy salter? If you're a heavy salter, lay off the salt for your child, but don't feel that you need to have absolutely no salt in family meals.
Yeah, but to level set here.
Yeah.
The recommendations for adults are 6 or 7 grams a day.
Yeah.
And if your kid is eating about a third of what you're eating, then it could eat your diet and still get about 2 grams a day, which is the recommendation.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah.
Except you're probably eating more than 6 grams.
Yeah, of course I am, because I'm enormous and I like salty food. But it's not. We're not talking about 0 salt here.
No.
We're talking about just not absolutely overdoing it and lay off the cow's milk.
Yeah, exactly.
And don't take your kids down a salt mine in Romania.
Oh, do you want to tell that story?
Yeah, I want to tell that story. We were on our way back from living in Africa for a year. Thought it'd be fun to come back through Europe. Thought it'd be fun to go to Salina Slanic in north of Ploiesti in Romania. And Gwen and I go in and we're staggered by the beauty of this architectural salt excavation site, 70 metres from floor to ceiling. And what is that horrible hiccuping noise? Oh God, what is it? Tiny 2-year-old walks up hiccuping in a very scary sort of... What have you done? And small child says, I eat it as salt. And you go, how much salt did you eat? And she holds her arms as far apart as possible and goes, this much. Oh, no. Anyway, yeah, it turns out they licked the wall and got very salty very fast and very hiccupy. And that's fine. You just pour as much water into them as possible and they wee it out. It's pretty scary for a second to do that. Anyway, okay, thank you for talking to us about salt. Anything else to add to close?
No, except it's such a great question, and at some point I'll write an article and I'll put all the references in there, but I'll put a couple in here today.
I feel like any author worth no, I won't. Thank you very much for listening. It's been a pleasure. I've been Dr. Greg Dickens and
I'm Dr. Gwen Bradbury.
And this has been Growing Up Weird. Bye.
Bye.